In some of my recent screencasts, I've started to include a couple of functions that are specific to Office 365 or Excel 2019. That is the newer versions. And it's really important that you guys are all aware of the compatibility issues between different versions of Excel. So I'm going to show you how you can preview the compatibility with earlier versions. It's really important, not necessarily if you're preparing spreadsheets that are only going to be used by you, but if you're preparing spreadsheets and workbooks that are to be used by others, it's really important to understand what version they have and then make sure that your workbook is compatible with the version that they have. So I've just got an example here of a couple of names here, and I'm just going to put in a couple of numbers here, and we're going to type in average of those numbers. So this is pretty typical computation, the average function, and this has been in use in Excel for a really long time. I wanted to show you how we can check to make sure that this workbook and all the functions within it are compatible with previous versions of Excel. So I can go up here to File, and if we go to Info, and we go down here to Check Compatibility, and it brings up this box and it says no compatibility issues were found. And it's basically going back pretty far. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So there's no compatibility issues right now with this file. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Now I'm going to use a function that I introduced in week 2 of the course. It's the rand array function. So first of all, I've got this dynamically named range called names. And if I add something onto this, then you see that if I go up here and I type in names, then it highlights that entire range. So this is a dynamic range. And I showed you how to do this in the previous screencast. There's a rand array function that's in the newer versions of Excel, Office 365. It's not in previous versions. And I'm going to do rand array. We can create a random array, integers or decimal numbers. There are a couple other optional arguments on the end here. This is going to create an array that's, you can specify the number of rows and the number of columns. So I'm actually going to make this be the number of items in my names array over here. I'm using the count A function because I want to calculate anything that's not blank. And then I'm going to make this one column wide. So it's going to be, in this case, 6 by 1. And I press enter and it does that. Now the nice thing about Office 365 is you have this, because I've made this dynamic range here, is it'll automatically update. It's called a spill. So if I put in Charlie, it spills because it's recalculating and counting. Now I have 7 items here. So it created a column of 7 random numbers. There's also a newer formula called sort. I can sort my names array, and you see I'm just putting that into a single cell, and the newer versions of Excel will spill that down to the same size as our names array in there. So this is known as spill, the rand function here, and then a new one here. I'll talk more about the sort function later on in the course. But it's updating in a live manner, so if I put in somebody else, then it automatically adds a random number and it's going to sort that in a live fashion. There's not really a way to do this live sorting in any of the previous editions. Let's go ahead and I want to show you how this is. We can check this for issues. So I'm going to check compatibility, and when I bring this up, you see that there's lots of errors. First of all, there's a significant loss of functionality. There's spilling, so that's the spilling that I talked to you about, where if you add something, it automatically updates and spills. That doesn't happen in earlier versions. So it doesn't happen in, I guess this is checking all the way from 97 up to the recent versions. So if you saw something like this and you had a client or a coworker that only had Excel 2013, you couldn't send this to them without there being an issue. There's also some functions in here that are not found in any of the newer versions, and so it'll tell you that there are significant errors there as well. So really the only person who can view this file as it is without any sort of problems would be those that have Office 365. I think there's also some versions like on tablets and phones that'll also work. But so you got to fix this problem before you send it off to that person.